If you're looking to buy an investment property and wondering what the upfront costs associated with purchasing it are going to be, then this is the video for you. Now, when I was first starting out as an investor, there was certainly no videos like this to help it make it easier for me to understand what I was going to be up for on the way in. So in today's video, I wanted to give you a super simple example of buying a $500,000 property in Queensland. Now, obviously the first big expense when you're buying a property is the deposit. You can either put down the deposit in cash or you could use equity from another property. I've also seen a small number of people using parents as guarantors. At the moment, the banks in Australia generally want to see between a 10 and a 20% deposit, meaning you'll be up for somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 as the deposit in cash or equity on a $500K purchase. Now, the second major expense is stamp duty, which is what the government takes on the way into buying the property. Stamp duty varies massively from state to state in Australia, and whether it's your own home or an investment, and whether it's your first or second property. There's some incredibly good free calculators on Google, depending on the state and your position. They literally just allow you to fill in some information and pop out the number. Now, looking at the $500,000 property as an investment in Queensland, you're looking at about $17,600 upfront in stamp duty to the Queensland government. Outside of the deposit and the stamp duty, there's also a series of other costs. Now, another one of the big ones is obviously your legal fees or your conveyancing fees. The combination of the work that the solicitor does plus the searches that they recommend can vary depending on the state in Australia and your position and relationship with them from between $1,000 and $3,000. Now, my solicitor has always recommended some additional searches, and one of them being a building and pest report. I've always personally engaged a third party and they produce those reports for somewhere between around about $400 to $600 depending on your state. Me being a little bit OCD as well, I generally do get a town planner to check the property and just have a look what's under the ground, as well as how the property is going, and if it is certified, that report normally costs me an additional $500. Now, one of the big ones that most first and second time investors or home buyers forget is the massive amount of compliance around investment properties or homes in Australia. These things are super important for the safety of yourself, your family, or your tenants, and include things like smoke alarm compliance, blind compliance, safety switch compliance, and pool compliance. And when you add all of those things up, plus whatever else your property manager or solicitor is saying that you need, they can stack up to at least a couple of $1,000. Now, they're sort of the major fixed costs, but there is also some variable costs, which are kind of like how long is a piece of string. One of the things that I like to do when I'm buying a home or investing in a property is a bit of a cleanup. Normally, I get a high pressure wash of the entire external of the house, as well as all of the concrete surfaces and fences, just to get the property in the best condition for myself or my tenants. I also generally get a professional cleaning company to do a bond clean and a bit of a tidy up as well. Again, just particularly from an investment point of view, if I do all of those things up front, then I'm presenting the property in the best light, which means more rent, a better quality tenant, and also they have to pass the property back as close to that condition as possible. Now, another one of the upfront costs that I always pay personally is a tax depreciation report. Whether it's an older property or a brand new one, I like to get that report in place and send it to my accountant to see if there's any tax benefits associated with the property. And the lucky last one for today's video is any additional works that you want to do, like a bit of a cleanup. Often clients want to put some nice flooring down, give it a bit of a paint, change the blinds or the fans. Other people I've seen, myself included, have done major work. So that could be structural, new decks, pools. It could be things like kitchens or bathrooms, or just an entire renovation on the property. But I think they're the major expenses that I've seen in the property. Obviously, some of those last ones are sort of the variable expenses and are not necessary if you're building brand new or buying a high quality, tenant ready, low maintenance home. And some of them, like the stamp duty, the legal fees, the building and pest fees, the town planning fees, and your compliance fees, are obviously things that are super important and that are included in the fixed price. Now, the last thing I wanted to round out the video with is property is obviously a huge financial decision, one of the biggest ones that we make as Australians. The reason I personally would invest in a $500K property, even though it has all of those significant upfront costs, is what it could do for me in the future. Now, if I have a $500K property today and that grows by an average of 4.8% for the next 15 years, my $500K investment is now worth $1 million. I was just recently looking at some data from Simon Priestley, where he looked at the last 50 years in Australia's capital cities, and those capital cities have averaged 8.2% per annum. So there's a strong long-term reason to invest in property based on leverage as well as the potential gains. But obviously there's some significant holding costs and some significant entry costs, which mean the barrier to entry can be quite high. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. For those of you who haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. Please give us a thumbs up and please share this with someone who's thinking about getting into the market that doesn't have all the information about the cost with buying property at the moment.
Whew, that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Getting
Have a
cool,
spin.
bro. Yeah. Oh, sweaty. So sweaty. Oh, that's good. Look at that.
So nice, eh?
Oh.